I'm Kelsey Ross. I am a carrier of 3C syndrome. It's an autosomal recessive disorder, but it also is an X-linked disorder as well. It's a condition that's carried on the eighth chromosome for the recessive form. It is one of those conditions that affects a lot of things. It has been known for causing distinct facial features, cerebellar hypoplasia or Dandy Walker malformation, as well as different heart defects. It causes intellectual and physical disabilities, but it really affects everything. And I'm from the Seattle, Washington area. I found this out. It was a long, long journey. My daughter, my firstborn daughter, she was at 20 weeks. We found out that there was a lot of things going on. So she was presenting with the three main trisomy type symptoms, I would say, in the womb. And we were asked if we wanted to continue the pregnancy forward. We did the amnio, nothing showed up. So it wasn't any of those things, but we didn't know. Then she was born, and she was presented with different symptoms. It was pretty clear there was something genetic going on, but there was nothing that really stood out. We pursued so much genetic testing over the course of about 2 years, from the time I was pregnant, 20 weeks, till she was about a year and a half old. And at a year and a half old, we found out through whole exome sequencing that she had this disorder. And it was kind of mind blowing to me, because I didn't realize when through the process, and I think it was partially me being really, really young and just not having anything in our family. I thought my daughter was going to have something de novo, so something new to her, but it turned out she had this really, really rare condition that only affects, now I found out, about 17 people in the world with the recessive form and X-linked form combined, like genetically diagnosed. And we found out, my husband and I were both carriers, and it was just like the biggest shock to my entire world, because I was okay with accept like that it was going on with my daughter. I had accepted that, but then it wasn't done. This was something that was going to affect us for years and years to come, and we weren't done having kids, or we didn't think we were. So that's how we found out. So it was about a month. Well, I found out by researching things online, and it about broke my heart. Yeah, I was pretty shattered when I found that out. But about a month later, my doctor, our geneticist, met with us and kind of went over our options. She discussed trying naturally, keeping an affected pregnancy, trying naturally, having to TFMR, or um, doing IVF with PGD. We actually weren't told about the option of using an egg or a sperm donor. And I think that's because it can probably be pretty offensive to people to hear that option, which I totally get. So when it took about 2 years to decide what to do after we found out our options. We Nothing sounded good. IVF is extremely expensive. There's no guarantees with that, and we didn't know if it would work, because I had a variant of unknown significance that I was dealing with as well. Um, Trying naturally, we didn't feel like having another affected child would work because of how significantly affected our daughter is. And my goal in life is to take care of her as long as I can, and there's no possible way that I could do that with a second affected child. And the option of TFMR didn't sound great either, because who wants to do that? And that was something I almost had to do in my pregnancy with my daughter, and that was tough. It's tough to think about having to terminate a pregnancy of a baby that's just like the one you have at home and you love so much, it's really rough. But after 2 years, of thinking, we thought we would take the IVF path, but we realized it was just too much money. We weren't in a good place to do that. So we decided to try naturally. I kind of prepped myself for quite a while to, hoping things would turn out okay, but preparing myself to have to terminate if I had to. Well, fast forward, we ended up having 3 more affected pregnancies in a row. We they're all girls, and they all had 3C syndrome. We didn't find out until 20 weeks with our second daughter. So we terminated at 21 weeks, and then at 12 weeks things were a lot easier to tell that the next two babies were affected. They were showing very significant severe symptoms really, really early, and so I terminated at 12 weeks 2 times in a row after that. um, so that was pretty heartbreaking, and so it was like, do we do the IVF with for PGD? So that's what we started to pursue. We talked to the fertility clinic, but they were the cost was just insane. They were telling us it would be 40 to 50 grand for it, which is a lot more than what they had originally told us. So we were not ready to spend that. And the other thing was, like, I was ready for some certainty. I needed something to work. I needed something to work really, really bad. And I wasn't ready. I couldn't handle any more heartbreak. I needed to complete my family. I wanted my little girl to have a brother or sister, someone to love her and care about her after we were gone. And so we started looking into different options like a sperm or egg donor. And my husband wasn't really into using a sperm donor. I think he's pretty connected to his genetics, and he wouldn't be the one carrying the baby. And for me, I'm not really connected to my genetics. My daughter, who I love more than anything, looks just like my husband, doesn't look like me at all. And so it didn't really matter too much to me. So we started looking into that option, and we discovered that it was going to be about 20 grand cheaper than using my own eggs, and we would be guaranteed a lot more than taking the PGD option. We had a set number of eggs that we would get instead of, using my own and wondering if we're going to have enough that aren't affected. Well, our my own eggs and our embryos, if we had enough embryos that weren't affected. And I just felt like more of a guarantee. Not that anything's guaranteed at all in any of this, but it seemed like the best chance for us to grow our family. And I was so ready to be there. And there was a moment where it was kind of hard thinking about carrying another, our egg donor's baby. But, I really came to terms with it pretty quick because I was so ready to complete my family, and that's what we did, and it turned out to be a great option for us. Well, it's never fun to have to dish out $30,000 to have children. That's that's not the normal for most people. Normally it's a little bit more free than that. But I don't know, the egg donor process was so much more simple for me than um trying to even go down the PGD road. We started to, and then I just backed out, and it was so much less complicated. I had to do a psychological screening, super easy. Um, it was actually a very easy process in the grand scheme of things. I think the emotional part, it wasn't even too hard for me, but I think if I was going into using donor eggs like right away, but having gone through everything with my TFMRs, it really solidified that this is what I want to do. You know, when you have to make those decisions, even though they're not your fault, you don't have any control in the genetics you were given. There's so much mom guilt there. Everyone has mom guilt to a degree, but I felt it so badly, even though it wasn't my fault.